talking about something, and I'll give you more information in a second. But we have here, what kind of an equation? What kind of a function? Polynomial, but what kind? It's a quartic, and I know it's a quartic because it is a degree of 4. Okay, so everybody good with that? And do you think I could plot points? If I wanted to see this graph, could I plot the points of this? Okay, so I could go and plug in, and I'm going to just show you. You don't have to write this down. I can put in a -3, a -2, 1, 0. So I'm going to get a smattering of points. And my graph, I just plotted this. We're going to see that something happens here. So what I'd like you to do is, let's graph this.
Is it normal that our calculators don't graph the quartic polynomial function?
No, your calculator should graph a quartic polynomial function.
It would graph it and it would say error.
Yeah.
Okay, let's think about this. Let's look, I plotted what might have happened. You might have to change your window.
It would go like quit.
Did it say dim quit?
Well, no, you can't do Zoom.
Quit error.
Okay, so we should be able to do this. Let's try it right now. So I should be able to plug in 2x to the 4th yeah.
It says error syntax.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me get there. 4x squared. So I'm going to go back to this is what I have on my graph right now. So I'm going to go to Zoom, I'm going to go to Standard and see what happens in a Standard window. Okay, so if I hit Standard, were you able to hit Standard and get something? You can't get it? You were able to get it? Okay. Pardon me? Okay, so let's, pardon me? Okay, so the only other thing that sometimes if you have your stat plot on, you might get an error. So you want to make sure that your stat plot is on. Okay, so I'm going to change this because I want to zoom in. I can see that I don't need all these negative this negative x value, and I'm not really interested in these negative y's. So I'm going to my window, and I am going to go with a max of 5. So please, let's go with a max of a -6. So please change your window with me. Minimum x min is -6. Let's go with an x max of a 6. My y scale can be 1. My y minimum, I'm going to go with, what was I going to do? Let's go with a, let me see, let's go with, we can leave that at -10. Let's just see what happens if this spreads it out a little bit. Okay? So, when I just graphed the points, and I'm going to move my calculator out, do you see when I just selected points at random, and I had done when x was a -1, I got 1. When x was 0, I got a 1. So it may be tempting to just connect them and have it as a flat line, but is it in fact a straight line? I can see that something is happening at -5. Okay, so sometimes it's really helpful to graph it and so that you can see it. Okay, so plotting isn't always a good way of doing it.
It's like 3 parabolas, except one's an
Okay, yeah. Okay. information that we're going to be talking about. And this is what I do want you to know. So quadratic functions have exactly one max or minimum, right? Because, why? Why do a quadratic have exactly?
It's a parabola.
Yeah, there's only one place, so we know that there is an absolute minimum, or we could have an absolute maximum. But in what we just graphed, I'm going to put this back up here. Did I have more than one? Okay, so I have one of them and some of them, and we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at absolute, so it's the absolute lowest that I can get. Now in this one, what about, is there a maximum?
Yes.
No.
No.
Why?
It's
Yeah, those lines are going up, up, up. We don't know where they are going. So there's, it appears there could be, and here's another vocab word, this is a relative max. Okay, it's relative, but it's not the absolute meaning, you know, the final max, all right? So quadratic functions have exactly one max or minimum, but cubics have no max or minimum. No.
Oh, wait.
And because, what do they look like?
Like an
They're
X.
like an ass.
Okay, so is that value going to just go up? It's going to continue to go up. And is it going to continue to go down? So there's no absolute max or min. Okay, but it may have what we call a relative max or a relative min. And so why don't we graph this next
What's
one?
the max? Relative maximum?
Okay, so let's graph this equation. So y equals x cubed minus 3x squared minus 6x plus 2. I'm going to go to Zoom first, 6, and then I'm going to graph it. Okay, so this is what my graph looks like right now. Do I need to adjust it? Where do I want to see? I want to see down further. So I can see that this is a cubic. So in this case, it has a relative what? Max. And I'm guessing it's going to have a relative min. So I'm going to change my y minimum. Let's go to, I don't know, minus 20. So I'm going to change my y scale to 2. There you go. Okay, so I can see it has a relative. This isn't the absolute one because this one is dropping. And this one isn't the absolute max, the other side is increasing. Okay? I think that those are pretty straightforward. Okay, so if I said to you, where is the relative max? What would you say, where is the relative max located? Okay, so it's located in this, so it's in this interval, and we would say maybe between the interval of a -2 and, I don't know, 1. So between this interval, that relative max occurs, or how about where does a relative minimum occur? Between maybe 0 and 5. Okay, so I know I can just say where it's located. So far, so good? I mean, these are pretty easy. All right.
Wait, what did that say? Like, y increases something?
Oh, okay, so in the cubic, y increases without bound. Okay, that's all. So the y is just increasing without bound as my x increased. And y decreases without bound as the x decreases. Okay, and I can see that as my x values are increasing, my y values are increasing without bound, and as my x values decrease, my y values are decreasing. Okay, that's all that was. All right. Okay, so let's look at a quartic. So do you want to graph this one? So quartics have either a max or a min. Okay, so a quartic has either a max or a min, and let's graph that last one, next one rather. So I have x Okay, and did anybody change their window? Yeah, oh, okay. So, what did you change your y value to, anybody? Y min? I'm gonna go with a -40, and I'm just gonna change my scale to, there, let's go back.
Yeah, -40 works.
And I'm gonna go with a scale of, I don't know, 10. Okay, so when we do this, what do we have? Do we have an absolute minimum? Or what? Okay, we have an absolute one. Can it get any lower than that? No, so it's absolute. Okay. And do we have a absolute maximum or a relative maximum? Relative. Because as my x values decrease, what happens to my y values? They're increasing without bound. And as my x values increase, these are also increasing without bound.
What do you call the other, like,
Is that
just
a
meter,
relative
nothing?
minimum?
I'm sorry, what am I calling what?
The other minimum, is that just nothing? 'Cause
It's
there's
a
something
relative
lower than
minimum, I guess. You have a maximum. This is your absolute. Okay? What time do I have here? All right. What time? Is that clock right?
11:40.